Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hi all, welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast on agriculture. In this episode, we will be discussing the problems due to water shortage. India is going through a water crisis that affects millions of people every year. It's not only the question of availability, but also contamination. The issue has been compounded by contamination of water due to various reasons. Data shows that over 160 million people lack access to safe drinking water. Also, the use of groundwater is more in India than China and the US combined. India utilizes the most water globally agriculture. It consumes 70 to 90% of the country's water storage. So what's really happening out on the ground? What's the best way how to ensure optimal use of water for all purposes? To tell us about this and more, we have with us Mr. Bishwadeep Ghose, Country Head, Water for People, India. Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, sir. How is the water situation in India currently?
Thank you for having me here. So, talking about the water situation, we are experiencing that we are going through a bit of a crisis. So, sometimes it is exacerbated by the rising demand and more recently climate change. And there is acute scarcity at sometimes, like in the lean months of summer, and sometimes there is flooding as we are experiencing in the cities. Yeah, so it is much more unpredictable and causes a lot of risk, especially to the farming community, a large number of whom are dependent on the monsoons for livelihood. Yeah, so there is scarcity. There is also issues related to water pollution in many cases. The freshwater ecosystems that are a source of water, not just for agriculture, but also for drinking. There is a lot of contaminants coming in, like fluoride, arsenic. There is high TDS, which is also creating a problem. So, and it is not just restricted to urban areas or rural areas. It affects different populations very differently, but looks like nobody is spared from the effects of this water crisis, whether you are in urban area or a rural area.
Sir, what has caused this water insecurity?
So there are multiple factors. So I think in the rural areas, if you see, especially in the rainfed areas, there is a over extraction of groundwater which is taking place, primarily used for agriculture. I think 70 to 80% of all groundwater is going in for agriculture, and also the remaining for industrial users and little bit for domestic purpose. So, because groundwater is underground, it's invisible, it can't be quantified, and what you can't see, it's very difficult to manage. So, partly the problem is being caused by that. The other issues are related to, I mean, we do not have the infrastructure that we used to have before for water storage and water distribution. So, it need not be infrastructure, doesn't have to be a engineering solution. We had lakes, ponds, or the tank system in South India that were there since many, many years, which have disappeared for some reason or the other, which has led to inadequate infrastructure for water storage. Then, like I mentioned, this contaminants getting into the freshwater sources and reducing the available stock that can be used for drinking. On top of it, this climate change, which has made everything much more unpredictable. The rainfall pattern has changed as we are witnessing. The monsoon doesn't come the time it used to be. Like this year also, there was a delay in monsoon. And even if it catches up during the course of the year, it is not much use, especially for agriculture, because your sowing time is dependent on when the rain comes. And then there onwards, the farmers need rain at periodic intervals for the crop to grow and the harvest to be done successfully. That has got altered. Now, we also saw that there is extreme heat like we experienced this year, like never before. Now, heat causes two things basically. So it causes more evaporation. So there is less water available at our storage reservoirs, which in turn results in more pumping of groundwater. That again leads to more exploitation of groundwater. Because to save the crops, farmers have to irrigate the water, and that also comes from pumping. So essentially, the agriculture getting affected, so does the drinking water in many parts of the country, which affects both the drinking water as well as food security in future. So if we don't turn a serious eye to this, it can lead to grave insecurity around food as well as water. In this uncertainty, water for people, we are experimenting in various typologies. What can be done by way of solutions? Yes.
Sir, what can be done to ensure optimal use of water in agriculture?
See, agriculture, if we divide it into two parts, right? So one is the irrigated part, the other is the rain-fed agriculture part. So what we need to do in agriculture for both of these areas need to be different. So where there is irrigation, which is minority, I mean, although the Green Revolution brought about food security, it also led to overexploitation of our natural resources, especially water. So there, what we need to do is to focus on optimal use and conservation for irrigation. So now, just because there is free electricity and free water, doesn't mean that we have to do flood irrigation everywhere. Because we know that agriculture, what is important is the soil moisture, which doesn't need to be catered to through irrigated agriculture only. So more we save, because groundwater is a common pool resource, more we save in one part will leave more water for usage in other part of its uses like drinking, etc. And for the rain-fed part, the whole paradigm itself needs to change, because the paradigm of green revolution that ensured food security unfortunately doesn't work very well for rain-fed areas. So there, all the components that go into increasing productivity has to be looked at very differently in the rain-fed areas. So there, the priority should be on, first of all, focusing on assured irrigation, the critical irrigation, so that if there is a long dry spell, the crops don't dry up. And there has to be a way to assure farmers of this critical irrigation during the lean months, especially, so that both the crops and their livelihoods thereafter can be saved. The other thing that can be done for rainfed areas is to develop the seeds that are commensurate for a particular geography, which are, let's say, drought resistant or flood resistant varieties, which are short duration varieties, because everything is becoming very unpredictable due to climate change. So any research that goes into development of seed systems, which used to be there with farmers because of their traditional knowledge, that use less water or are tolerant to salinity, etc., can be promoted to both conserve water as well as secure the food security in the rain-fed areas. There are certain other things that can be done which are not water related, like the price incentives given by the government for procurement of crops, which is linked to the public distribution system. So we are aware that, I mean, because there is incentive available for growing paddy and wheat and sugarcane, farmers have started to grow that in areas that are not necessarily suitable to grow these crops as well. So that has led to high abstraction of water, just because the farmers, it helps them to minimize their risk, the climatic risk, because once they grow this crop, there's a ready market for them. Whereas ideally, what should be done is to give incentive for crops that are suitable to grow in local agroecological conditions. For example, in Karnataka or Maharashtra, Vidarbha area, or even in the mountain areas, the millets used to play a very pivotal role both for food security. But because there is no price incentive for procurement of millets, uh, they have shifted to, let's say, growing paddy or wheat in areas that are not meant to be grown. So certain policy related signals that can incentivize agriculture that is based on the agroecology of that area can help both the food production as well as water security of that area. And many states are already doing that. There is AP Natural Farming Coalition is there. There is Millets Mission of Orissa, which is promoting millets in a big way. Likewise in Karnataka. So these examples need to be studied, the policy impetus gleaned out from it, and maybe scaled to other states where it is found suitable, so that at a country level, we make a good dent to the size of the problem, both in terms of food security as well as for water security. These are some of the areas. I mean, of course, the other things that can be done, like what we are trying to do with farmers in the areas that we work with, is to do a water budgeting exercise. Like I said, because groundwater is underground, it is invisible. There is a method based on rainfall, based on understanding the hydrogeology of an area, to calculate how much supply of water is there and if that is enough to cater to the demand coming from agriculture, drinking, livestock, etc. And if there is a deficit, then there is the certain measures that can be taken to augment the supply through a watershed-based approach or aquifer recharge program that we are experimenting in West Bengal, Maharashtra. So more and more water resource management kind of work in the wake of climate change is what we need to promote and at huge scale and in a very differentiated way across the country. Finally, what we are seeing is that both water and agriculture are state subjects, right? So that is perhaps because of the recognition that these pan out very differently based on the context. Like the agroecological region varies across the country. What is holds good for South India may not necessarily work for East India or the mountain regions for that matter. And in our work also, what we are seeing is that the more we involve the communities and create a ownership among them, because they are in the center of facing the problems, the better is the overall management of both water and agriculture. So there is no other way, because a one size fits all or a centralized approach unfortunately doesn't really work for agriculture or for water. Decentralized contextual solutions are only way to go forward. Therefore, why not we focus on the strengthening the governance of the local institutions, provisions for which are already there under the 73rd Amendment of our Constitution, right? So instead of looking at it in a project mode that like Jal Jeevan Mission comes and will do something or some program on agriculture, we strengthen the local governance institutions of panchayats who are empowered to deal with these issues anyway. And if we build their capabilities, building on their agency to respond quickly to the climate hazards that might be unfolding in their area, then the overall governance of how water and agriculture is managed probably will improve quite a lot. And these are some of the experiments that we are trying to do in our own area, which hopefully will throw some light as to how this can be done better in future.
What has to be done to improve the groundwater situation?
So, groundwater situation, I mean, that's the only, groundwater is called the last refuge of the farmers. Let's say when there's no surface water, do we rely on groundwater? Even in urban areas for drinking more and more, we are relying on groundwater. Bangalore or in even this year, there was a problem in Delhi. So, there are two things that we can do about groundwater. One, whatever limited stock of groundwater we have, we ensure that they don't get contaminated, right? So that the pollution, once it gets in, then it becomes prohibitive to clean. So protect the groundwater resources from any kind of pollution that takes place and figure out ways of equitable allocation among its various users. which includes agriculture and domestic, etc. Then we can, based on a deficit situation, we scientifically design the recharge and the storage mechanism for a particular area. And here we can rely on nature-based solutions. All of our olden cities had a system of lakes and ponds and tanks that needs to be rejuvenated, that needs to be rehabilitated, and use the natural storage either on the surface or in underground like aquifers, and direct the rainwater where it falls, when it falls, to the storage areas. Secondly, I mean, we try to minimize the consumption of water in agriculture, especially through demand management techniques like this Atal Bhujal Yojana has brought about, where based on the availability of groundwater, the farmers are doing their own planning related to what crop is suitable for that area, and different kind of agronomic practices to optimize water use. So these are some of the ways. And in urban areas, of course, for supply augmentation, roof rainwater harvesting is being recommended, that we are also trying out in schools, hospitals, in all public and private spaces even, to store that water either for drinking or use a surplus and divert it for recharge.
So thank you very much for your insightful views, and we hope that those who are listening in will really, look towards how to save water and make it available for all purposes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Subramani.